And I'm Rachel Tiemeyer.
And we are Team Thriving Home. And you're here, we're here because we are going to be working through our 1-hour prep session number 9. And guys, this one is breakfast.
Or breakfast for dinner.
Yes.
Which we like to do a lot. All right, here's what we're making today. We'll run through it real fast and then we're going to get started because I know you're excited. The first one is our 5-ingredient breakfast casserole. So we're going to make 2 of those. Remember, we're making 6 total freezer meals. And this is gluten-free if you care about that. If you don't, it's still delicious. Our second one is pumpkin chocolate chip baked oatmeal. And guys, we make this probably every other week in my house. It's very easy to make. It's healthy. My kids think it's like dessert for breakfast. The third one is our baked blueberry French toast with vanilla glaze. And this is absolutely delicious.
Sounds like dessert.
I know, it is a little bit like dessert, but hey, serve it with a smoothie or scrambled eggs and you can feel good about it. So we're going to get started here.
Yeah, now before you get started, remember we have some tips on page 4 on to help you make sure this only lasts an hour. So those tips include setting out your equipment, your ingredients, which you've already done, and even cutting out your freezer meal labels. It also really helps if you just read through the instructions just so you know where you're going on this journey. So.
Yep. All right. Well, let's get started.
All right.
Now, this is for our breakfast casserole. If you chose to do bacon, I gave other instructions. You can actually bake the bacon and chop that up, but we're doing ground sausage, breakfast sausage. So to get started, I've already preheated a large skillet over the oven here, over the stovetop, sorry, and that's on, I think on medium high, you want to do that. And I'm going to put 2 teaspoons of oil. Just make sure you coat the bottom so the sausage doesn't stick. So once that's hot and the oil, you'll see it, it'll be shimmery. It'll be moving around. And that's when you know it's hot enough to put your sausage in. So I'm going to get that sausage started browning. And while I do that, Polly's going to kind of tell you what's next.
Yeah, nice thing about this is going to take 7 or 8 minutes, so you can multitask while that sauce is just cooking. So you can stir it a little bit and do some other stuff, and stir it a little bit and do some other stuff. So we're going to move on to step 2, which is prepare your casserole dishes. So let's talk about these casserole dishes, shall we? Okay, so we recommend these Anchor Hocking ones, and we just use these. I mean, we've had these for years, and they still aren't showing any signs of wear and tear. So we like these a lot. We have these linked in our prep session and at the bottom in the show notes on this video. So you can find the direct link to those. Now, we know that not everyone has 6 of these, right? I don't even think we do. But if you don't, you have an option of using some foil pans. I know a lot of people use these. So with foil pans, one thing to keep in mind is that the sizing might be a little different. These are 8x8s, okay? And we designed these recipes to go in these 8x8 pans. These are a little smaller. So don't freak out if your whole recipe doesn't fit all in this. Just fill it up to the top and then stop there. Don't overflow it. Don't feel like you have to put it all in there, okay? So you're just gonna have to kind of make a game time decision of how full you make your smaller pans. So I'm going to go ahead and grease those. That is loud cooking back there. No, you're fine. We were just saying that's going to be loud. Okay, so I'm going to spray these. Was there anything else you wanted to say, Rach?
Yeah, go ahead. So we're going to grease those a little bit. And so after you do that, you're going to put your freezer labels on, right? And I'm going to keep working on this.
Yep.
But this is, like she said, it's going to take 7 or 8 minutes. So you've got a lot you can work on during that time. Like I'm just going to get this kind of broken up. So I use a wooden spatula spoon, and really get it broken up. And then you just kind of babysit it back here.
All right, well I'm going to finish doing these, and then we'll meet you back here for step 3.
Okay, we are back, and we are in step 3. So I finished the sausage from step 1. It's done cooking, and I turned it off. But let me show you what you do with that when it's done. I want you to take a slotted spoon, because there's a lot of grease left, and go ahead and transfer it to a plate that has paper towels on it. And that'll allow it to drain and kind of cool off. And then we'll move on to the next step. So, Polly, you want to show them part 1 of step 3?
So this is going to be for the French toast casseroles. Okay, so taking this is like a bread knife, a serrated knife, and you could do this 2 ways. So you can cut it with a knife, which is a lot more efficient and quick, but if you have kids that want to help you cook, this is a great one for them to get in on the action. But I'm going to show you first just how to cut this. I like to just stack it up. Now, it's worth mentioning this is stale bread. I let it get stale overnight because most likely you don't have a whole loaf of just stale bread lying around unless you throw your heels of your bread into the freezer and keep all those, which I've done before, and then make a casserole out of it.
Does it come out stale from the freezer, or are you just saying?
I mean, I'm just saying when your bread goes stale, not
when
moldy.
it goes stale.
Yeah, I save it and freeze it until I have enough to
Yes.
make a casserole.
I do too.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Okay, so just one thing to mention, to let it get stale, overnight, you would like lay it on the counter. Just like lay it out and let it get hard. You know, you can even do it for like 2 or 3 days, honestly. This is one of those, like, the crunchier the bread is, the better.
That's why I did this one. It was sitting out last night, all night, just to get, you can kind of tell it's kind of falling apart even as I'm cutting it, which is good. That's how you want it. So it's kind of like a little tricky thing here, but I've got that stacked up there. I did just 3 cuts there, and I'm just going to go the other way now too. Again, this will get kind of messy, but that's totally fine. Or this is where your kids come in, and you could even like give these little strips, and they could just do this. Right?
Yeah,
they would have
we
fun
used to
with
do that too with our little
So
kids.
anyway, I'm gonna finish cutting these while you want to talk us through what we're gonna do after that.
So, and did you say about 1 by 1 inch pieces?
Yeah.
So kind of just bite-sized pieces.
Weren't you listening?
I'm multitasking, which you are too. By the way, feel free to pause
Yes.
at any point during this because we're moving fast. We have prepared some things ahead of time.
And there's 2 of us.
And there's 2 of us. Which that reminds me, we have some people that tell us who do these prep sessions that they actually do this with friends.
Yeah.
So actually, Polly and I today, we are recording 2 of these prep sessions together. So we get to each go home with 6 meals.
And school starts next week, which
Woo!
is perfect.
So our freezer will be stocked. And then we're shooting 2 more on Thursday. So I've like been looking forward to this week all week. The point is, it's really fun to do this with a friend.
Yeah.
And then you can divide the meals.
You
Or
can do it in person with a friend or virtually with a friend.
virtually. Yeah.
Just
So we had some people say they did it over Zoom.
So fun.
Which is super fun.
I love it.
Okay, so she's going to finish up this bread. And then I'm going to move on to step 3, part 2. So we're going to make the wet mixture. So you're going to crack 10 eggs. I'm going to have you do this first. That way if you get any shell in there, you can fish it out. What's the best way? Okay, pop quiz.
Ooh.
What's the best way to fish out eggshell?
I know that you taught me this actually. With another eggshell.
Yes.
They gravitate toward each other.
Shell
I taught my kids
attracts
that the other day.
shell. I taught my
know.
husband that the other day.
It's
He was
genius.
It was kind of like I wowed him with that little tip. You can wow someone with that tip.
I think I've also heard if you dip your finger in water first
Oh, is
before
that
you go
right?
fishing for the shell, that actually does it too. But the shell to shell thing worked really
Right.
well.
Yeah.
Because when you have kids cracking eggs, there are shells.
There's for sure shells. It's not going to kill anybody to have a shell, but it's not the
You
best.
probably wouldn't notice it.
A little extra protein or something.
Just a little crunch to your casserole.
A little texture.
There are worse things that could fall in, right?
Yeah. That's true.
Better than hair.
One time, this is like, speaking of things falling in your food,
Oh gosh.
I'm sure I've told you this story, but one time I was making, this is from our first cookbook, From Freezer to Table. We have this recipe for broccoli cheddar potato soup. My kids love this, but it's one of those soups that you kind of puree part of it at the end.
And there was like a lot of chopping before. You
Oh
worked
my gosh.
hard on
No,
this
so
soup.
I not only did I make one batch, I made a double batch.
Right.
And this
you
is a
worked
legit,
hard.
yeah, there's a lot of chopping. Exactly. It took me a long time.
Peeling, chopping.
This was like I was doing it out of love for my people. And so I get to the end, to the very end, okay? The soup is done. All I have to do is get my immersion blender in there and blend the whole thing just a little bit, you know, so it's not like too chunky because they like it pretty smooth.
Yep.
And all of a sudden I'm looking down, I'm like, there's blue specks throughout the whole soup. Blue, blue. I'm like, what on earth is blue? So I'm
There's no
looking
blue food
around,
in
there's
here.
no blue food in here. Turns out the lid to the chicken broth, like that little round lid, had fallen in the soup, cooked with the soup, so nice plasticky taste.
Got
and then
soft.
I blended it. Blended it. I had to dump 2. It was a sad
That's
sad
really
day.
painful.
It was painful.
That's
I
like
had to dump it down the drain.
that's like almost equal like when you like let a roast thaw and you forget it out overnight or something.
Oh, yeah.
For sure have done that. That's just really sad.
Yeah,
You
for
wake
sure.
up, you're like, no.
All right, here we go. I got my 10 eggs. Yay!
Wow, you were able to count while doing that?
Well, I had a dozen. Just didn't put 2 in there. Probably.
Just doing some math.
Okay, just doing some math.
I'll
So
move out of
here's
the
what I do. I taught my kids. I pop those egg yolks first. It just makes it a lot easier. And I use my whisk and get in there. I'm having you do this first because I just think it's easier to whisk your eggs before you get all the other. In fact, that was our testing team. They said this was a good idea, and I was like, I agree. All right, then you want 2 cups of milk. So you got eggs and milk. This is a well-rounded breakfast so far.
It is, yes.
And then I melted 1 stick of butter. Okay, so don't freak out. I'm just going to add it a little bit at a time because I don't want to scramble my eggs. But honestly, I put that cold milk in there. It's going to be fine. Don't stress.
And sometimes people get worried that as their butter starts to solidify a little bit in there. And we said this in our notes too, but it'll be fine. It's all going to end up okay. It's all going to spread out okay. So you'll start seeing probably little chunks of
You might, if your butter's not super warm and the milk is really cold.
Yep.
Okay, I've got 2 more ingredients to go in here. I've got some pure maple syrup, so don't use the fake stuff. You gotta use the real stuff. And I'm gonna do a full half cup here of that. And that just adds some natural sweetness without adding sugar.
Makes it more of like a breakfast casserole rather than just a...
That and then vanilla. I love vanilla. It's like one of my favorite ingredients.
I make my own. Did you know that?
Okay.
Have I ever showed you how to do that?
No.
Maybe we'll link to that in the show notes. I do. I buy vanilla beans and then I give it, makes a great teacher gift. I do this for teachers. So I still do it about once a year. I get a bunch of vanilla beans and then you soak it in vodka or alcohol, like really cheap vodka, and you just divide it up in little jars.
Yeah.
So
I bet this smells awesome.
it's really great. Yeah. It's
we have a blog post about that.
I
We
know.
should link
It's
to
probably
it.
really old. I need to update that.
You need to update that, Polly.
It's a good one.
Okay, so we have our wet. What Polly's going to do next, now that you have your wet ingredients, is you're going to go ahead and start layering your casseroles. So let's make sure they can see what you're doing.
And I'm doing half and half here, right?
Okay, so for step 3, part 3, I want you to do this in each of the casserole dishes. Can you guys see these? You can't see this.
Okay.
Let's move it back.
I can kind of hold it up as I do it. Oh, no. Okay. I'll move this over.
Getting situated.
Bigger island.
Getting situated. All right, so we're going to start by putting half of the bread that you have sliced up in each of the casserole dishes. So just divide it in half. So you had a 20-ounce loaf or 20 ounces approximately of bread. So it should be about 3/4 of the way up.
If you happen to be using one of these that's smaller, this might be the time to maybe minimize, like leave a little out, don't you think?
Yeah,
like I said, that's going to be kind of a game time decision on you.
Right.
But
And our testing team did say these smaller foil pans, they got too full.
Right.
And so if it were me, I don't like to waste ingredients. Guys, this is, well, either that or I would even consider, like, if you have like a bread loaf pan or something, make a smaller one of these. Yeah. You know, and you could bake that later. But that takes a little
ingenuity.
Yeah.
You gotta be okay with a little imperfection with that. So if you're like a down the pipe recipe follower, that might freak you out.
That might freak you out. Okay. So anyway, we got our bread. Yeah. All right. So now what you're gonna do is I want you to put half a cup of blueberries over each of this.
Okay.
Okay.
These can be frozen or fresh.
Frozen or fresh.
We're doing
Don't
fresh.
thaw your frozen
summer
ones
right now.
because if you thaw them, I mean, it's not the end of the world, but if you did thaw them, if you thaw them, it turns your casserole blue, which your kids might think is fun.
That'd be kind of fun.
So you're gonna put
Smurf, like a Smurf casserole.
Yeah. So what I'm gonna have you do here is put half a cup on each, and then we're gonna pour the egg mixture, divide it in half, and pour it over. Okay. So here we go. We're gonna try to do this with the least amount of mess. Okay. If you need measurements because you're like particular about it, I have those in there. About 2.5 cups each. What do I have here? I have about 5.5 cups. So we'll see how we do here.
And if you don't have a mixing bowl with a spout like this, I probably would scoop it up.
Do a ladle.
Yeah, I
or
would
do
use
a
ladles or
mixing cup.
I would use
So
a
guys,
measuring cup.
like for real, I'm just kind of eyeballing this because again, it's not the end of the world.
Right now.
Yeah, not the end of the world. If you don't get it perfect. And then Polly, I'm gonna make you do the messy part. I want all of this mixed together. I want those blueberries throughout. I want to make sure every piece of bread is, go in there, girl, with your clean hands. I want every piece of bread to be wet, okay? So just, you're kind of giving it a little massage.
A little toss.
Around, a little toss.
A little egg toss.
Okay, so those blueberries are going to hopefully get kind of mixed throughout.
They kind of sink to the bottom, really.
Which is fine because the last part is you're going to sprinkle the last half cup over each. So you have 1 cup of blueberries left, and then once you do half cup over the
My
top.
hands are already dirty, and it's going to get in there next
So
to
maybe flatten that out a little bit.
And then
a half cup sprinkled over the top, and it just makes it pretty.
Yeah.
And it evenly distributes your blueberries.
Yep.
So
looks pretty.
that is done. And then what we're going to do, we happen to have lids, but if you don't, if you want to do foil, that would be fine. If you're doing foil, I would probably suggest wrapping it maybe in some plastic wrap first or after the foil, one or the other.
Our saying is always air is the enemy of freezer meals. So the least amount of air you can package with your meals, the better. That's why we suggest doing that extra layer of plastic on top. But it'll be okay. If you're going to eat it pretty quickly after you make this, it'll be fine if you don't do that plastic wrap.
Let's see. I'm going to put the labels.
High five. I'm going to wash my hands.
Get away from me. All right. So I've got my labels here. So after you get this done and you've washed up, Holly's washing up, you're going to go ahead and tape your labels on. Now remember, you can fill in some side dish ideas, and I have one for you. We have tons of delicious smoothies on our blog.
They're really popular.
They're very popular. And in fact, we teach you how to make them into freezer meals. Maybe we'll do that in a future prep session. Wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah.
So grab an idea for, and I put some in, I put my favorite smoothie, I think, in here.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so when you put these on, I like packing tape, especially on these kind of dishes. It holds them in place and looks pretty. And so this, once you get the lid on, is ready to freeze.
Yay!
Now, one last thing before we move on. This mixing bowl you use, go ahead and rinse that out before we meet back here for step 4.
Okay, guys, we're moving right along. We're on step 4. We are tackling our second recipe in our prep session. So this recipe is the breakfast casserole.
Right.
Think about it for a minute. What are we doing?
Hash brown breakfast casserole.
I'm going to start on step 4, like I said, and I'm going to crack a whole lot of eggs into this mixing bowl that we just rinsed out. So I'm going to get to work on that. And then, so basically I'm going to make all, I already dropped a shell in there. Here's the trick right there.
Here's your trick.
It works.
Shell, attract shell.
Do it worked.
Yay.
Perfect.
We don't lie. All right, so she's going to crack 12 eggs in this one. Again, we have you do the eggs first so you can fish out the shells and you can kind of whisk them before you add in everything else. It just helps to get it blended a little bit easier. So 12 eggs, she's going to do a cup of milk and then salt and pepper. So here's the thing is this recipe is very simple. We intentionally kept it very simple for you guys. My kids really like it the way it is, but you can, if you know that you love salt and pepper and maybe your sausage isn't
really like flavor.
Yeah, and part of this recipe is it's dependent on the kind of sausage you get. So if you get like an
Italian sausage,
a highly seasoned, not Italian, but you want breakfast sausage or pork sausage. That's what you're looking for. Italian sausage is like, that might be a little weird.
If that's what you have, though, is what I'm saying. You've got flavored sausage.
So, but anyway, my point is it's simple. So you can get a little creative if you want. If you want to put a dash of garlic powder in there, if you want to put more salt and pepper, you can. But you can also always do that at the end. Like when you serve it up, you can put more salt and pepper, hot sauce. Salsa is really good over this when it's all done. You need a cup of milk.
Yep. Okay, so I got my 12 eggs in there.
Okay.
And then the milk's going in. Oh, wait.
I think you're missing one egg.
No, that one was actually kind of damaged and halfway cracked, so I went and got another one.
Got it.
There's an extra one sitting over there.
Okay, so she's going to do that. So the other thing is, I want you to know is if you love vegetables and your kids will eat vegetables too, you can always saute like bell peppers, onions, mushrooms, things like that. Maybe even a little spinach or kale, and you can layer that into this casserole. We didn't do that because it just takes time and it's a little more complicated.
Just kind of giving you the bare bones casserole here.
Yeah, exactly. You can add onto it.
Yep.
So you've got your milk in, and then
salt and pepper. Coming next.
Now while she's doing that, she's
like
finishing that up.
like my label-less salt here. It came off, but I know what it is.
So I've got my hash browns here. Now I stuck them in a colander and I stuck them in the sink, and I've kind of tried to push a lot of the liquid out of them, and that's because. By the way, I thawed these as well. So we had instructed you guys to thaw them in advance. Don't stress if they're not fully thawed, okay? But the reason why we thaw them and we try to push a lot of liquid out of them or dab it up with a paper towel is it means that it releases less liquid during the baking time. And it makes that baking time not as long, and it also makes it like a less liquidy casserole. And even when you freeze this, it'll kind of add more moisture to your casserole.
That freezing and thawing of the hash browns releases
exactly.
more moisture.
So that's where we're trying to get the liquid out. Okay, so now we're done with our wet ingredients. We are moving on to, I think, part 2. And we're going to start layering these hash browns that I've dabbed with paper towels. So I'm going to put 1.5 cups of hash browns in each. Okay, there we go. do my tricks.
It was a trick.
Kitchen tricks again. Yay.
She loves to flip those cups around.
Don't you feel like when you're in the kitchen and you do something like that, no one sees, but like you catch it? Like if you ever drop something and it's starting to fall and it's like catch it, like squeeze it up against a cabinet and you're like, I'm amazing. I just caught that. I've done that like so many times. Am I the only person who says that about
You might
myself?
be.
Okay. All right. Okay, so here we go. 1.5 cups. So basically like just a good layer on the bottom.
You can kind of
Here.
eyeball this too.
Mm-hmm.
Just taking about half of it and splitting it between 2 casseroles.
Exactly.
Okay.
All right, so I got that along the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And then next up, I'm going to do about 1/4 of that cooked sausage that I made. And for me, that was about 3/4 of a cup of sausage. But, you know, again, use up all your sausage. So,
Yeah, you don't want to go skimpy on that.
Actually,
I'll do the cheese there for
I
you.
might even need a cup of this sausage. Like that. Okay.
Yeah,
That looks good. Yeah, so I'm using up 1/4 of that for each of these dishes. You're going to do 2 layers of all your ingredients here.
Following the sausage is about 3/4 cup of shredded cheese on top of that.
Yep.
So I'm just going to go behind there. Now I'm eyeballing this. I know this is stressing some people out, but I'm just like, well, that looks about 3/4 cup to me.
I mean, hi, it's cheese. Like,
right.
it's not going to be bad if you get a little too much.
I know. I will err on the side of a little too much than too little, to be honest. So I'm just going to put a little bit more on there because my family likes the cheese. There
Is
we
this
go.
one done, or are you?
Yeah, that'd
Okay.
be 3/4 cup there.
So I'm going to do 1.5 cups of the hash browns again. Now you'll be surprised, these hash browns end up being fairly dense in this casserole, so that's why you don't have like a huge giant layer of them, because you want everything to be balanced. You want to taste some sausage, some cheese, some hash browns in every single bite. So almost done there. Yep. So we'll do, after the hash browns, we got another layer of our sausage. And I notice I have a lot of sausage left. I'm going to make sure I use
Bring
it
it
all.
on, girl.
Bringing it
Use
on.
it all.
So if you're not like a pork sausage person, you could for sure do turkey sausage. I saw plenty of breakfast turkey sausage. It's a little
Be healthier.
Yeah, it's less fat.
My husband would love bacon. That's a lot of bacon to make.
I've done this with bacon.
All
It's very
bacon.
good with bacon.
Yeah.
It does. I mean, my husband was like, "Hey, more bacon."
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I did a pound of bacon, which to me felt like
For
enough.
just one?
For
Or do you, for 2 of them?
For one.
Okay. Yeah.
And he was like, "Oh, I'll take more bacon."
Yeah, I bet the
So-
hash browns kind of blend or kind of hide that bacon flavor.
Okay, good. We got all that sausage.
Topping
in
with
there.
cheese, correct?
Topping with cheese.
One more layer of cheese, a handful.
Yep.
/ 3/4 cup.
Yeah, exactly.
Depending on how big your hand is, I guess.
You could even.
I know, I might
Yeah.
do a little bit more.
Okay.
And then, after the cheese,
Yep. After the cheese, then we're gonna do the wet mixture again.
and this is where if you're working with a smaller dish, these are 8 by 8, like I said earlier, but if you're working with a smaller dish, just stop at the point that this is at the top of it.
Right. Okay, so this is where you kind of have to, you know, eyeball it. But if you don't want to eyeball it, I think I did measure it out. It was 1.5 cups per casserole of the wet mixture, something like that. Very close to that.
Feels like 1.5 cup.
But you're mainly just making sure everything gets wet with that wet ingredient.
Right. You can kind of look on the side of it
got
too
a little
and see how you're
extra.
doing. I might add a little bit more this one,
definitely get
but-
more in that one.
So yeah, look on the side of your glass dish. You can kind of see how full it is, and you want to make them
if you're using a glass dish.
as close as you can to even.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think, yeah. And so remember, your seasoning is in that wet mixture. And so that's what helps season it as well as the sausage. Okay. So then we're going to put our lids on. My hands are kind of
All right.
dirty.
I got clean hands. I'm going to do the labels here. So putting them here, and as a reminder, write any side dish ideas on this. We have all those suggestions in the packet, but that came highly requested after our first round of prep sessions released. So like, we want side dish ideas or a place to put them.
Yep.
So we add that space for that. Oops, sorry. And then I just apologize to the label. Did you see that?
You're so polite.
Sorry, label.
All right. So, guys, we have 4 of our 6 casseroles done and just a few more steps. So pause it, get set up for the next step, and we'll meet you here.
We are on step 5, our last step.
Yay.
So the baked oatmeal is about to happen, guys. We are going to start with mixing the wet ingredients into a blender. And the reason we do a blender is just so it smooths out all the banana chunks and the pumpkin, and it just makes it a lot smoother of a recipe.
Right. However, if you don't have a blender, I put directions in there. You can do this in a bowl, but use a fork or a potato masher to get that banana really nice and, you know, mashed up.
You don't, I mean, it's not the end of the world if you have a chunk of banana, but my kids get thrown off by that stuff.
Yeah.
So
Polly's tempting fate here. She is cracking
living
her
dangerously.
4 eggs straight into the blender. If you don't want to do that, you can do it in a bowl and fish out your, you know, fish out egg.
Hey, you know what?
Shell attracts shell.
There we go.
There we go. Good job.
Yep. Okay, so I did 4 eggs in the blender.
4 eggs.
I'm going to add 2 cups of milk. Now, I wonder if people are going to ask me to do almond milk or...
Absolutely. I do almond milk plain. Plain almond milk, plain oat milk. If you're not into the dairy thing, yeah, for sure. I do that all the time.
Yep.
I'm
This can be dairy-free really easily. That's the only step, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, and we have some melted coconut oil, and this is going to go in there. Is that what's next on the list?
Yep. And if you don't have coconut oil, you can melt butter or even avocado oil. It's a nice, neutral, healthy oil that you can use. I actually sub that a lot.
Yep. Okay, and how many teaspoons of this?
Let's see. I think we've got 2 teaspoons of vanilla.
1. And make sure you use real vanilla. I think a lot of people get tricked at the store. There is basically kind of artificial. I just got some on my face as I shut that. So it's more expensive for sure, but that's, I mean, you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
Because there's definitely for years I used this kind of artificial vanilla, not even knowing there was a difference. I was like, I'm just buying it cheaper. And now I realize, oh, there's a big difference.
much flavor in that.
Yeah, it adds a lot of flavor. So, okay.
A can of 15-ounce can of pumpkin.
Yes.
We've already got that. I actually had that left over from a giant can.
That
sounds. I don't like this sound. It's like a flopping sound.
This is why we should wear aprons.
And it's going
We should
everywhere.
get little thriving home aprons, Rachel.
Or not. All right, and then 2 large. You want some overripe. See how they're kind of brown. When your bananas get like this, that's good. That's when I make my baked oatmeal.
Yeah, for sure.
Or we have a breakfast cake recipe that we use it in all the time. That's on our site. It's called Make Ahead Banana Breakfast Cake. You should make that.
Never throw away overripe bananas. We actually have a blog post on 10 ways to use that. We can link that too, because never throw it away.
So what we do is we peel them, and then I actually cut them in half and stick them in a freezer bag.
Exactly how I do it.
Yeah, and then freeze them, and I use them in our smoothies, and we use them in recipes
any kind of baked stuff. Yeah, I make a banana chocolate chip recipe all the time. Chocolate chip muffin recipe all the time.
All right, you gonna blend that?
I'm gonna blend it. Ready? 3, 2, 1. We're gonna go high.
That's it. Now we both have Vitamix blenders. They're pricey, but I totally get my money's worth out of that. If you're looking to invest in a high-powered blender, totally recommend Vitamix. We have a link below if you're interested. I use mine every single morning, literally, for our chocolate-covered cherry smoothie. It's the bomb, and it's so good for you. It
does make a big difference in smoothies. I had kind of a cheaper, Ninja one, I think, before this one, and I thought it did. I was like, yeah, it blends it up, but then my God, this, I'm like, oh, that's like puree.
Legit.
It's different.
All right, we're gonna make the dry ingredients. I love this recipe. My kids make it now. My kids are a little bit older, like middle school, and they make it. So 6 cups of oats. I get the old-fashioned oats. We get asked if the quick oats work. They do, but they're denser. So you've actually got more oats per cup when you use quick oats because they've kind of already been steamed and they're a little bit smaller. Okay, that was 3. Don't lose track.
It's hard to chat and count at the same time.
5.
True mom skills do that.
And 6. Alrighty, so I got that. And then we're going to do a cup of brown sugar. Now remember, this is going between 2 casseroles. One of the things that I use a lot, I don't know, do you use coconut sugar?
I don't.
Ever? So I actually substitute coconut sugar. If you haven't tried it, it actually kind of has a flavor like brown sugar, but it's just healthier. It's less processed. It retains more nutrition. So that's kind of a tip for a little healthier.
Yeah.
It's lower on the glycemic index as well.
Okay.
All right, and then a half cup of flaxseed. So ground flaxseed. Don't get those don't get the.
I made that mistake once.
Yeah, I don't even know why they sell that.
I
guess people
love
grind
a lot
their
of our
own.
recipes have ground flaxseed in it, and I love sneaking that ingredient in. It has a ton of omega-3s in it, which we live in Missouri. We don't get a lot of fish, right?
Exactly.
And the kids now, when they smell fish, they're like,
Yeah.
ah! So it's kind of a way that we sneak in a lot of omega-3s into my kids' diet. Is I throw it in almost every baked good, even pancakes and waffles.
And you can substitute flaxseed for some of the flour,
Right?
About a half cup usually in most recipes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm doing baking powder, so that's 3 teaspoons. I'm on 4 teaspoons of that. Okay, and then cinnamon. I love cinnamon. This calls for 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. You can, if you love cinnamon, you can do more. No big deal. And then salt, which I think we
I put it away.
Whoops. Where's the salt?
I got it. I'm on it.
Okay, so I'm gonna stir up those dry ingredients.
How much salt goes in it?
Half teaspoon. So you just do half of that.
Eyeball it. That's
Okay.
like the theme of this prep session. Just eyeball it.
This prep session, I love it because it's actually pretty easy. Like, it's a little time consuming more than some of our others, but as you'll see, these casseroles, they're not rocket science put together. They're pretty easy, and I think you'll enjoy making them even outside of this prep session as well.
Yep.
All right, we're gonna take our wet ingredients
Ready?
and pour it. Yep. Hang on one second. I got a ball of. Sometimes you get a ball of brown sugar. You gotta make sure. Okay. Wet ingredients.
A shock to bite into. All right, all at once. You stir as they go. Okay.
Just go for it.
All right.
Okay, so you do need a big mixing bowl for
Yeah,
this before you pour. I actually double this recipe a lot, and you can make 4 of this size, or you can make 2 of those like 9x13 pans. And honestly, we do the 9x13 a lot because my kids they'll plow through it in like 3 or 4 days. So
yeah, it holds really well in the fridge.
It does.
It's one that you can cook at the beginning of the week and kind of munch on all week
Yep.
long.
And then, because it's delicious and kids like it, you got to put your chocolate chips in there. So I'm going to do about 2/3 cup of these mini chocolate chips. I like the mini chocolate chips because they get throughout. You don't have to use as many chocolate chips.
Now, we did do it with dark chocolate last time I made this. Dark chocolate chunks, and it was pretty tasty.
Oh.
I love dark chocolate.
I love dark chocolate too.
Yeah.
My
But
kids,
it does like disperse better when you have the mini chocolate chips in there.
Okay, so this batter's all done, and all we have to do now is kind of scoop it evenly into our dishes. So for this, we're using the foil pans because I know a lot of you are using foil pans. And this one, you just fill it mostly to the top. It will expand some. I'm going to set this on the counter.
That's about to tip over.
It is. And then, Polly, if you want to put the
Start labeling it?
the labels
Okay, I can put
on the lids.
I want to make sure this was as much as you wanted it in at first. Okay.
Yeah, so again, we're just going to put our, they're right here.
There. Okay.
We're going to put our labels on and make sure they're taped on really well.
Yep. And this has the thawing and baking instructions on it, which is super handy to have.
Yep.
It's annoying to have to go back to the recipe.
So this one is good. You can even send this in a lunchbox for your kids. So you warm it up, stick it in a thermos.
I think this is a good one to take to new moms too, just because I feel like when I was a new mom, the breakfast situation was always really hard.
Yeah.
I wake up starving, everyone's hungry, and then also oats are just really good
They're healthy.
for new mamas too.
Yep.
So really filling.
Okay.
It's a good one to take to someone.
Hey, that fits perfectly in these foil
Where are my
pans.
windows? Oh, there it is. Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
That does fit perfectly. Now it'll expand a little bit, but it won't spill over.
If you're worried when you bake these that maybe they'll spill over, stick them on like a rimmed baking sheet pan or something like that, just to double check.
And that won't be that messy. That's not like a cheese or something.
Yeah. So again, like we say, air is the enemy of good freezer food. So make sure that you are really pressing out any air. These lids, I mean, they're fine. Yeah. But if it's going to be in your freezer for a while, you might consider like wrapping this even more in like plastic wrap first.
Maybe the trick.
And that kind of thing. Okay. Yay. We're done with 6.
Yay.
Hang on. We'll be right back. Congratulations. You just made 6 meals in just 1 hour.
We hope you guys had fun. We sure did. And we are excited about our breakfast meals. You can find more prep sessions like this one at 1hourfreezerprep.com. See you in the next video.
Yep. See ya.